It's time for Market Explainer, your number one business news podcast. Hosted by Danny and the big man. And it starts right now.
But let's move on to this next story. But before I do that, I want to tell you about our sponsor for the segment, Acre Gold. I want you to meet the new store of value. It's the same as the original store of value. People, gold is God's money. You don't even have to believe in God to know that it's God's money. This timeless and thoughtfully designed 2.5 gram bar of gold is a great way to get started as a gold investor, or it's great for the seasoned investor. The opportunity Acre gives to you is the opportunity to build up a little bit of cash with Acre through a subscription model. And when that amount of money accrues to where you can actually get a 2.5 gram piece of gold, guess what they're going to do? They're going to send it to you. They're going to send it to you. They're going to send you pieces of gold. So you can get started right now with Acre Gold by going to the link down in our description down below and checking that out. I am a gold investor. I know the big man has gold. I also have other precious metals. They're hidden throughout the city and various states and countries under various trees.
What do we got next, Danny?
So this is really awesome, super cool. The front page of the internet, Reddit, where we are frequent lurkers, is going public.
This is my favorite story, probably our shortest story, because there's just not a lot to report about it, really, except for talking about the fact that they want to go public. They have confidentially submitted their draft statement to the SEC to go public, and which I find funny because they confidentially submitted it, but then turned around and made a public statement that we did it. But look, the Reddit has been around since what, 2005, 6, somewhere in there.
Something like that, yeah.
So it's a 15, 16-year-old company that is primarily based on old school images and font typing comments, right?
Right.
It's the type of communication that's been around since the beginning of the internet. Right?
Yeah.
Versus this visually stunning.
Yeah. So Reddit to me, like, I just think its ubiquity is what made it stick around. So Condensed owns Reddit, which I didn't know that. Which was a surprise to me. They've owned Reddit since 2006. I was in high school when they bought freaking Reddit.
So Reddit was a regular company that was bought out, and then it was in the early 2011, 2012 was made its own entity again, right. I believe, which is now what's going public, right? But what I'm saying though is you have this is a prime example of what you and I have talked about since the beginning, and Danny hates me saying this whole build an audience thing. Danny rolls his eyes because it's the truth. Reddit has built over its 15 years an audience of beyond loyal people that they call themselves Redditors, including myself, right? And so they built this unbelievably so that when they started putting ads on the platform, which it didn't originally have,
right,
it overnight started generating, again, like the last story, we're talking about eyeballs. That's what you get paid for when we talk about advertising. It had millions and millions and millions of eyeballs, so when it turned around and actually started adding ads to its platform, its revenue shot through the roof, so much so that when it did its last round of funding last year in this year
and a few months ago, Reddit raised $700 million at a $10 billion value.
Yeah.
Which blows my mind that they're taking a series. What is this? It's got to be a Series Z, right? You're such an old...
Yeah, I mean, the round of funding that it's had is probably insane, but that's my point, is something, again, boomers don't understand. The people with money don't understand how the internet works, right?
Correct.
They just know, here's Reddit with God knows how many millions of unique monthly not subscribers,
Right.
but people that come to their website and interact with their website. I would also assume that the amount of time per user on their website is much
Right.
bigger than most places, right?
Correct. Because Reddit is one of the few websites that once I'm on Reddit, there goes my evening.
Yeah, you could be there 5 or 6 hours and go down a rabbit hole of God knows
Yep.
what, and then and sometimes it's information, sometimes it's insanity. It could be anything, which is the beauty of the website, right?
Right.
And then, but then you go and you sit there, so you spend all this time on it, and they turn around and take that data and go to advertisers and said, "Hey, your website people spend 30 seconds on. Our
Right.
website, on average, they spend 20 minutes on."
Correct.
And advertisers go, "Oh, holy crap," right?
Right.
And then they get to charge through the roof. I mean, they're talking about, let's see, at that funding round, the company said that it had reached 100 million in advertising revenue just in the second quarter of 2021.
Right.
That's
Mind
insane.
blown. Mind blown.
You see what I'm saying? Like that's
Right.
that's and they only look. This is I don't have the exact year, but they only
Right.
started to put ads on Reddit as a site a couple of years ago. This is not
Right.
something they've been doing for a decade.
Right.
This is relatively new for the website. Now, I will tell you as a Redditor, since this announcement has come out, there's a lot of conversations on Reddit from Redditors concerned about how this affects the site. When you go
Yeah.
public, that comes with expectations of
Right.
money, of growth, of advertising. Does Reddit become Facebook where they start,
Yeah. So what's interesting is over the last 8 years, Reddit has continually become a place that has, they eliminated the Donald, which was the subreddit dedicated to the former president of this country. They got rid of a lot of subreddits. Some of the subreddits they got rid of, um, perfectly logical.
right,
You
sure,
know,
absolutely.
um, perfectly reasonable to have eliminated. But and earlier at the beginning of this year, we saw Reddit organized a short squeeze on GameStop. Probably one of the most wild things that's ever happened on
Right.
Reddit.
From Wall
Um,
Street Bets, the subreddit Wall
yeah,
Street Bet. But that has been kind of the key to Reddit is these what they call subreddits, which are
yes.
subcategories, niche categories that
Which,
anybody can open a subreddit.
which for the uninformed and the uninitiated and the unwashed masses of the market explainer crowd here, Reddit is just one massive forum. If
It is.
that's the easiest way to describe it. But the way that forum is designed and set up is it's Reddits and subreddits, so forums and a subforum.
Mm-hmm.
It's one massive forum with subforums that, like, for the guys who are early into forums, me, VW Vortex, right? VW
Mm-hmm.
Vortex had, like, it was only for Volkswagen guys, but I'm a Japanese car guy, and we were still on VW Vortex because that was just where there was some sort of car people. But now there's all sorts of wild car people on
Mm-hmm.
Reddit, and there's so many different subreddits. And one of my cars was on a subreddit because I build cool cars sometimes, occasionally. Well, the one time I accidentally built a cool car once that didn't really run well, and now some guy who hunts raccoons owns it. But
Well, in a free open format, right? You can go and create. We could go, and we don't currently, but we probably should have a
at
Market
some point,
Explainer podcast
yes,
subreddit, right? Where you can interact with people. And look, there's anything and everything that you can imagine. It's one of those places that you can go, and if you spend enough time, can find your group of
everything,
people. It doesn't matter
yes,
whether you're into D&D, whether you're into World of Warcraft, Market Explainer,
yes.
business,
One
whatever.
of
You can
my
find your people.
one of my former projects ended up as somewhat popular on Reddit because it was a weight loss challenge that I had done with. Well, I did the weight loss portion of Tim Ferriss's book. And Tim Ferriss started tweeting about it, and it ended up on a subreddit about keto or something like that. But it's, to me, Reddit's one of those wild things. And yeah, you're right. This is probably going to be one of our shortest stories in the history of the stories that we do on the show because they're going public, and that's neat. But
Yeah.
that's the story.
Well, and
They're
we'll
not
know
some.
more as we go on. They
Yeah,
haven't
but
disclosed
listen,
what. Go ahead.
but I was just going to say, throughout the years, they had a CEO for a while named Ellen Powell, She was a freaking nightmare. She kind of tried to ruin Reddit because she's like, well, why are all these people on here having a good time? And by people, she meant men, and men saying things that she disagreed with. And she was a freaking nightmare of a CEO, so they got rid of her really quick because she's like, well, why should the men, like, just a concept that there's a man somewhere enjoying something bothered her, right?
Well,
But
but I think that's changed over the years as far as
yes.
men. I'm sure it's still statistically their predominant market, but
Oh
like
yeah.
Reddit was my wife's stepping stone to TikTok. Like my wife, I introduced my wife to Reddit years and years ago.
Now,
She very quickly became a Redditor because again, you can waste hours going down any
yeah.
number of
Let me ask you.
subreddits.
Yeah, let me ask you a simple question. Do you regret your choices?
I do kind of regret my choices in the amount of time that my wife spends on these platforms.
Yeah.
And she hasn't given up Reddit by any means, but it was kind of a Reddit introduced her to that get down
Rabbit
a
hole.
rabbit hole of
Yeah.
you wouldn't even understand. You come
Yes.
across a comment and you're like, all right, now I'm going to look at the comments to those questions or that whatever. And you can spend hours just going through comments and what those comments go to. It's
Right.
like what people used to do with Google that
Yes.
they don't necessarily do anymore. But anyway,
Who
so
even uses Google?
yeah, they haven't
DuckDuckGo.
disclosed what the company stock ticker would be, how
Right.
much they're looking at going, what the
Right.
value, how
Well,
many
yeah.
stocks are in and we're going to have to do an update eventually because they haven't disclosed any of this stuff other than, like Danny said, that they intend to go public, which, oh, by the way, they could turn around and change their minds, right?
And hey, by the way, if you want to see our update shows, those are all going to be on our Patreon. We're still figuring out how that works. So, but that really rounds about everything that we have to say about Reddit going
That's
public,
it.
which is, hey, that's neat.
That's
But hey,
happening.
it's a story. So by middle of next year, they may or may not be public, and I got to take a jab at Ellen Powell, so everything's good.
Yeah, there you go.